Let's talk about motorized outdoor recreation. Over the past several decades, technology has gotten better, populations are gaining more financial freedom, leisure time is encouraged and accessible, cities grow denser, and more individuals are seeking outdoor recreation as a way to unwind, escape, and connect with nature. Globally, protected environmental areas such as ecotourism sites and local and national parks receive an average of 8 billion visitations each year, with approximately 80% of those visits occurring just in North America and Europe alone. Specifically in the United States, a huge leader in motorized outdoor recreation, between the years of 2000 and 2009, outdoor recreation participation increased by 7.5%. Traditionally, many of these activities have been in the way of hiking, bird watching, mushroom picking, snowshoeing, and skiing. However, as technology improves and our middle class grows, more of that outdoor recreation involves motorized machines such as four-wheel drive vehicles, dirt bikes, all-terrain vehicles, ATVs, side-by-sides, dune buggies, and snowmobiles. In fact, in the 11 years after the first ATV was introduced in the United States in 1971, 750,000 units were in use, and by 1986, over 2.5 million units had been purchased, while motorized off-road vehicles numbered 8 million by 2003. For the purposes of this presentation, let us refer to all motorized forms as ORV, short for off-road vehicles. Overall, motorized recreation is growing worldwide, yet the controversies around it continue to be prevalent with unclear solutions. Additionally, as our global populations continue to migrate into more urban areas, a heightened focus on psychological health related to urban density has begun to emerge on the positive effect nature plays on human health. Interactions with nature are essential to reducing anxiety, creating awareness, and decreasing daily stimulation, which allows for healing and physiological management. It has been evidenced that individuals who have greater access to nature have lower mortality rates than those who do not have access. Thus, going forward, outdoor recreation by means of motorized activity, in regards to popularity, will be key in maintaining good overall well-being by allowing individuals the opportunities to access natural environments. There is no doubt motorized outdoor recreation will continue to grow as populations continue to seek relief from urban environments, just as recreationalists to public lands who used an ORV grew from 21 to 38 million from 1982 to 1992. Looking at today, vehicles are now more powerful with louder and stronger engines, more customized to tackle harder terrain obstacles, incorporate knobbier and rougher tires to handle a wider variety of trail conditions, and are overall more reliable, allowing users to travel greater and longer distances across remote and often ecologically unique geographies. Essentially, many discussions point towards motorized recreation as a major factor in the disruption and destruction of biodiversity in sensitive protected areas, often falling in the category of public land. In fact, the literature agrees that all forms of outdoor recreation have the potential to negatively affect natural areas. Yet, outdoor recreation provides opportunities for research and observation of natural areas, as well as allowing visitors to connect with nature and become aware firsthand of its complexity, beauty, and diversity, and is heavily intertwined with existing tourism economies and global lifestyle habits. This presentation will focus specifically on motorized recreation with references to the Pacific West Coast of Canada, highlighting both the impacts this recreation has on the environment, but also to acknowledge the popularity and importance of allowing motorized recreation to. Finally, it will look at what the current literature suggests for solutions to minimize impacts and offer a solution through government-assisted financial support to local organizations that have geographical familiarity to maintain and research regional concerns by transferring that responsibility from government bodies to local and passionate groups of volunteers. So what exactly is the issue with motorized recreation, and how does it affect the environment? To answer this, we must understand that almost all outdoor recreation will affect the area being recreated in. The mere presence of humans through noise or smell is enough to trigger fear or stress responses in all sorts of species, from mammal, avian, insect, or amphibian. Humans are generally unfamiliar and unnatural to many geographical areas, and our interactions with nature interrupt many species from their survival tasks, such as reproduction, energy conservation, and habitat creation. As well, humans, by both motorized and non-motorized means, contribute to the overwhelming spread of invasive species. As seeds from plant materials attach to clothing and equipment, humans carry that material across great distances and often into new and vulnerable ecosystems. These invasive species compete with native plants for resources, and because the new ecosystems have not yet developed a method to keep the invasive species in balance, The invasive species often wins the competition, taking over large areas of sensitive and biodiverse ecosystems. As humans enter into outdoor areas, whether by use of heavy vehicles or through quantity of foot traffic visitors, soil is compacted and eroded away by truck tires and shoes, respectively. As soil is transferred around, lower layers are exposed, which may be more permeable to water and eroded quicker, as well as soil being compacted, causing natural hydrology to be affected. In both circumstances, water runoff can be affected, causing less or more water to be directed into waterways, leading to human-influenced droughts or flooding. There are, of course, motorized specific impacts which must be accounted for, such as special concerns regarding chemical pollutants leaked from mechanical parts, fuel emissions, and poorly maintained fluid compartments. And, when combined with compacted soil, water is able to run faster along those pathways, causing less of those pollutants to be absorbed and filtered by the natural soil layers, and instead be transferred unintentionally into areas where sensitive flora and fauna could be affected. Overall, outdoor recreation is of major concern and well documented on its impact to the biodiversity of our natural ecosystems. Ecosystems which are essential to filter and store global toxins, specifically carbon dioxide and carbon respectively, create fresh, breathable oxygen, allow for food security, contribute to national finances by means of tourism, allow for psychological well-being, filter drinking water for urban populations, nurture medicinal flora for ingredient production, and create a balance for ecosystems worldwide which depend on the survival of each other to maintain biodiverse flora and fauna. It is key, as outdoor recreation increases, practices are researched and established that allow for the most minimal impact as possible in order to fulfill both the desire of an outdoor connection and experience, yet conserve the natural environment in order to keep it healthy and functioning. Although most public opinion targets motorized recreation as being more destructive than non-motorized, one study found evidence that non-motorized activities resulted in negative effects 1.2 times more than motorized activities. Further, when motorized recreation is conducted passively at low speeds and with intentions to stay on designated trails, the impact is less than the impact of activities such as horseback or hiking. However, it should be noted that it is incredibly difficult to isolate and gain statistical evidence between motorized and non-motorized, as all trails have a great amount of variance regarding terrain sensitivities, mixed or strict use activities, and observable user groups and frequency. As well, very few studies examine whole areas of recreation and instead focus on specific interactions with specific elements, making research hard to compare to each other. Yet, some statistical evidence does exist, and that animals experience a negative effect in 59% of interactions with outdoor recreation. And additionally, one group of researchers observed that in protected areas where horseback, hiking, and biking activities were present, fewer carnivore species were recorded as opposed to protected areas that were completely closed to all recreation. In this regard, this presentation will make the assumption that all outdoor recreation leaves an impact, but as motorized activities are gaining more popularity, motorized attention needs to be a priority in order to satisfy the demand. So how do we lessen the impact? Most research recommends motorized vehicles stick to established trails as opposed to creating their own paths. This way, trails can be created and properly planned by educated groups with considerations for negative impacts and select routes, terrains, and user groups that will have the lowest impact on the area. Additionally, trails need to be properly maintained from everything to trail signage and path markings, assisted drainage over compacted areas, maintain bridges over sensitive water systems, and ideally human waste facilities with systems to help materials biodegrade properly and completely. Trails kept in these conditions will allow users to access the remote, pristine, and wild areas they seek to experience, but it will minimize the amount of area impacted by sacrificing a small portion of land to be used by all users. Trails with maintenance and forethought are able to plan around sensitive areas and direct all users to bridges and bypasses in order to protect and prevent each user from using their judgment on where to cross or how to access the next area. Proper signage and labeling will prevent doubling up of trails and increase the awareness of which areas can be accessed and how and why those areas have been chosen as opposed to others. Signage is an ideal way to increase awareness and educate user groups on the impacts of their activities and can ultimately make outdoor recreation an intellectual opportunity. Unfortunately, in order to keep trails in this condition, which will be most effective at mitigating negative impacts, a substantial amount of resources must be available and clear responsibilities in place. Unfortunately, the responsibility of maintaining this public land, often classified as parkland, comes down to government leadership, and such responsibility falls on governmental divisions and organizations, such as British Columbia Parks, Recreation Sites and Trails, or British Columbian Ministries of Forestry and Transportation, divisions which are already pulled in too many directions with unencompassing budgets. Thus, it is unfeasible to make a plan where successful expectations are placed on an entity that will likely not be able to prioritize trail maintenance when placed in the same realm as education, urban planning, public defense, immigration fluctuations, just to list a few. Therefore, the easiest way to make sure outdoor recreation is not deprioritized is to take the responsibility away from the macro and place it in the hands of the micro organizations who not only have a passion in the field of activity, but existing regional knowledge of the areas they recreate in, as well as the willingness to contribute unpaid volunteer resources to activities they see as important. These few factors alone can mitigate an immense amount off government resources and allow government bodies to act more as supplementary managers rather than as an entire workforce. Thus, the key to lessening the impact of motorized activities on biodiversity is by improving trail maintenance and developing new quality trails according to environmental research by passing the responsibilities of such tasks to local, interest-oriented groups who are able to focus on such projects. This, of course, leads to the willingness of interest groups to take on such roles, and evidence has found many groups are shy to taking on such tasks due to financial resources and legal liabilities. Liabilities scare many groups into remaining unofficial and staying away from political involvement as they lack the protection from a legal status or insurance. Rather, an individual must deem themselves responsible, and in a discipline such as outdoor recreation, jointly with public land, consequences can be long-term and have huge crossover to other jurisdictions. Thus, the decision to take on liability insurance as an individual or an unofficial group can be foolish, causing many groups who wish to be proactive deterred by liability concerns. Therefore, a safer and less risky method is to hand over the responsibility to official interest groups such as non-profit organizations and societies. One such not-for-profit society is the Four-Wheel Drive Association of British Columbia, which advocates for safe, informative, and sustainable motorized recreation. By passing trail maintenance over to groups such as these, the government can allocate resources to the areas in need, while also ensuring preventative measures are in place for areas of lower current concern but of equivalent overall importance, such as increasing outdoor recreation. However, in order to make such a relationship work, interest groups need the support and trust of government bodies to not only maintain trails, but to create new trails to accommodate the increasing participation in motorized outdoor recreational activities, as too much use in one area can be just as drastic as uneducated self-made trails. This trust needs to come in the form of assistance in terms of liability clearances and continued legal responsibility, as would occur if an interest group were not involved, as well as financial incentives for groups, absorbing the maintenance responsibilities, as well as financial freedom to conduct research, implement trail plans, and build infrastructure. There currently exists very little public funding in Western Canada dedicated towards management programs for recreation or aimed at assisting interest groups who aim to improve or implement quality outdoor recreation management programs. Many groups similar to the Four-Wheel Drive Association have access to a large source of volunteer labor and widespread knowledge where individuals are willing to assist in club activities and growth, which is by far more cost-effective than any government program could implement. The Four-Wheel Drive Association, for example, relies on small annual membership fees, personal merchandise sales, and fundraisers to build their annual budgets. However, the overall gains are still substantially small in comparison to the work put in to achieve such gains. This makes it hard for large projects to be targeted, as well as encouraging opinions to form regarding which projects need to be sacrificed each year, as funds can just not cover everything that needs covering, potentially leaving vulnerable areas exposed to disruption. Therefore, the key to creating a sustainable relationship between ORV users and low-impact activities is for governments to allow interest groups more opportunities to take over responsibility for user trails and to make funds more accessible and less cumbersome to obtain by smaller interest groups who show a concern for sustainable motorized recreation. Ultimately, motorized outdoor recreation is a booming industry and extremely popular pastime and shows no evidence of user participation decreasing increasing in the coming years. An extremely effective and immediate action in order to preserve natural landscapes is to ensure motorized activities are conducted sustainably and in areas intended for their use. However, that means areas need to exist that allow for such recreation to commence and that balance the gains received by ORV users while leaving the lowest amount of impact. This can be made more possible by shifting responsibilities to interested and active ORV recreation groups who demonstrate a passion for both motorized activities as well as nature conservation. These already existing clubs consist of large loyalties of volunteering members, but lack the financial means to implement quality and proactive recreation plans through limited means of income. However, governments in exchange for the relief of trail maintenance responsibilities can fill this financial gap, as both parties work together to create more sustainable opportunities for ORV users to participate in outdoor recreation.